Hello all, welcome to Mysterious Knowledge Texts. I am going to start piecing out the interesting parts of this book. Thanks for sticking with me so far, MKT heads. The Top Secret Amish Front, and Hutterites. It will probably assist the reader to know that both of the authors have first-hand experience with the following information about the Amish. Fritz was Amish for several years as an Amish church member in church districts in Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois. He has also visited numerous Amish settlements in the US and Canada, and lived/worked with the horse and buggy Old Order Mennonites, not to be confused with the Old Order Amish Mennonites, in Ontario, Canada for half a year. He has a manuscript of a book that he wrote about the Old Order Amish Mennonites, and has gone so far as to inquire with publishers like National Geographic if they would like some of his material. He has also attended a variety of Mennonite churches, including Church of God in Christ, Men. Holdman's, Charismatic Mennonite, Conserve. Men. And Beachy Amish churches across the U.S. He also knows firsthand that Illuminati slaves, some of who are programmers, have been infiltrated by the Illuminati into Mennonite churches. Perhaps what may come across as the strangest religious front, and it is certainly one of the biggest secrets of the intelligence agencies, is their use of the Old Order Amish Mennonites as a front. The Amish are the most pacifistic people, so the Illuminati/intelligence agencies have placed some of their best programmed assassins behind the front of being Amish. The front is real, they are Amish, well, many of them. Some were Illuminati children switched at birth to give the programmers better bloodlines to work from. Some Amish women in cult families have let the Illuminati impregnate them with stronger bloodlines. Many Nazi bloodlines were hidden after WW2 under the Mennonite/Amish cover. The Mennonites and some of the more progressive Amish adopt many children. The Amish in Missouri, Jamestown, Kansas, south of Hutchinson, and Oklahoma, Guthrie, OK, Kentucky, Ohio, Holmesco, and Pennsylvania, Lancaster, PA, have been involved in selling their children to the Illuminati. When the Illuminati would buy a child, they would send in one of their own midwives to help with the birth and retrieve the child. Generally, the Amish would sell their children when they realized they were going to have twins. One would be given to the cult, and one would be kept by the Amish parents. Because these children are born outside of the system, and have no birth certificates, they made excellent children to use in porn. They also can be used as expendable children to use in porn. They were often blonde-haired and blue-eyed. The Amish women were not allowed to use birth control, it was forbidden by the church, and they were not allowed to have an abortion, and it was their duty to have sex with their husbands. It is possible that some parents sold their children just to get out of the responsibility of having another child. The Amish farms in Kansas and Oklahoma and in the border states like Missouri and Kentucky are mechanized with tractors, and they don't need the large families that the Amish in other places need. Due to the strong legalism that pervades their church, some have tried to get around the tight spot that the rules place them in by selling a few unnoticed children. However, there is an active witchcraft practicing occult group within the Amish which is like a box within a box within a box. It is very secret. There are many ways of describing what is going on with the Amish. Let's describe quickly in half a page, it could be a book in itself, what a deep look at the spiritual dynamics of what is going on with their communities. The rise of Satanism within their ranks is simply a natural outgrowth of the spiritual dynamics. There were two trees in the Garden of Eden, one was the tree of life and one was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The first meant being transformed by the Creator who made them into the image of the Spirit of God and receiving spiritual life, but the other tree was performance. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, religion, includes both law, good, and license, evil. As soon as a group gets legalistic, they fall from grace. They then separate themselves by their performance and say in effect, look at what we're doing, which is a form of pride. God resists the proud, so they through a number of spiritual dynamics lose fellowship with God. This means they must cling to their legalistic traditions even more, because a live relationship with God is gone. Bible studies are forbidden by most Amish church distirists, and they don't get new revelation from God. They still are working off of the revelations of the 1600s, when they were traumatized and quit growing. When they split from the rest of the Mennonites, they were like a child altar split which never grows up. When a group gets legalism, they also get license, because the two grow from the same tree. Every Amish community has two large groups, the legalistic ones and the license ones. The young people are even split this way. In Lancaster County, the Groffies is the nickname of the large license group of young people who fornicate and drink. There is a smaller group of legalistic conservative young people too, who are at the other end of the spectrum. There is one group, gang might be a more appropriate name, called jamborees, who are an unruly and destructive collection of angry wild young people. The bishops in Lancaster Co. meet twice yearly to keep this large settlement of opposites together. A lot of compromise and looking the other way is done for the sake of peace. Peace at any price is the name of the game. Even before a prayer is said in church, the minister calls out, "When mer Enoch sin, well a mer bet." This translates, "If we are in one accord, then let us pray." Because peace is so important, they are out of balance in getting it. They place peace far above truth. In order to have the appearance that everything is well, secrecy pervades everything like the air one breathes. Because their whole culture is secret, children raised in it aren't aware of how strong it is simply a way of life, like it is for the Illuminati. Legalism values conformity. Conformity prefers robotic obedience over understanding. In fact, one bishop told Fritz, co-author of this book, "We don't want our young folks to understand why they do what they do, we only want obedience." Understanding is dangerous. Does the reader begin to see how the Amish make both the perfect setting for monarch mind control, and the perfect cover? The Amish are a very secret group. During their early history they suffered severe persecution. Their culture teaches them to suffer in silence, which today helps their satanic abusers infiltrate their culture. In the past in Europe, when the Catholic or Protestant Church caught them, they were tortured to death. They were hunted as animals and treated worse than animals when caught. This was the trauma that Satan did to them, and the lie that was then handed them was that if they would cloister themselves secretly in the New World away from everyone else, they would be safe. The Amish have shut out from outsiders the true flavor of their culture and beliefs. They are silent about their problems. They tell themselves that outsiders couldn't possibly be interested in their affairs. The Amish themselves are very divided from each other. The divisions between Amish groups is called Tzvatracht. Tzvatracht can cover anything from a mild aloofness to a full-fledged shunning, called the Miadung. The Amish aren't in general qualified to tell outsiders much in detail about their own heritage, or religion, because they are so isolated from the other Amish settlements and have been raised in such an anti-intellectual culture. Most Amish are content to know that the way they do things was always done this way, and that their elders and forefathers were gifted men who examined things very closely. Their social norms are not intellectually questioned by most Amish, but then American society has been very isolationist in the world, and few Americans question their society and norms. Americans even rebel in the prescribed fashion, whatever the elite tell society is the uncool, hot, stylish way to do things. The Amish are similar to the Mideast culture in that they have a very indirect approach to saying things. They do not consider it proper to speak with a negative connotation about anybody. They also instinctively give pat answers to outsiders to blunt questions. These pat answers border on being rigid, prejudiced, and simple. They serve the purpose to deter curiosity. The early Amish leaders were ex-Catholic priests, but most of the people were peasants who had little formal schooling, had little Bible knowledge, and came from southern Germany and the Rhineland, where witchcraft was practiced by the common people. The spirit of witchcraft never left the Amish. It has always been with them. The folk witchcraft is called Brauch, and the craft is kept secret by old men who pass the incantations down in secret. When the Amish moved to Pennsylvania, they moved in next door to Rosicrucians. When the Rosicrucian settlements fell apart, they joined the Mennonites, thus bringing their Hermetic magic along with them. Somewhere within the Amish were some families that were undercover for the Jesuits, and were sent in as spies long ago because they were corrupt. These families have been generational Satanists, which practice pedophilia and other crimes in the safety of their isolation. They were placed within the Amish to help the Catholic Church destroy the Amish. In Europe that happened under Hitler, when all the Old Order Amish were arrested in 1938 and wiped out of Germany. Prior to WW2, the Nazis, part of the Illuminati, sent over a number of programmed multiples which set up an unnamed cult in upstate New York. This cult was to help Hitler take power in the US when the Nazis won the war. They did not win the war, but 60 years later this satanic cult still operates. Now second and third generation programmed multiples are now part of this cult. Somehow this Illuminati mission coordinates with the Illuminati project to get Hitler's bloodline hidden among the Amish, although the authors are aware of Hitler's descendants being in Oregon, and Washington as well as Pennsylvania. One of them in Portland, Oregon, works for the federal government. Lancaster County is sometimes referred to as the Mother Church. This was one of the original counties which the Amish settled in when they first came over to the New World. William Penn invited Rosicrucians, Amish, and other dissident religious groups to Pennsylvania. The Satanic Covens in Lancaster County, PA consist of members from Amish, Mennonite and Brethren churches. They are not simply all Amish. Lancaster County's Amish will fellowship will all the approximately 200 other settlements of Amish around the country. What is a peculiar phenomena, is that many churches that do not fellowship with one another, will still maintain communion with Lancaster out of respect for place in Amish history. However, Lancaster County has some of the most immoral reprobate Amish that there could be. All this is hidden very well from the thousands of tourists, due to the secrecy of the Amish. The Amish do not often pay taxes, do not pay Social Security because they are exempt from the Social Security program, and send many of their children to Amish schools. They are truly a separate society which maintains rigid secrecy. If you were the New World Order or the Illuminati, where would you want to hide your assassins? The safest place is inside of the most pacifist group in the world, the Amish. Monarch mind-controlled slaves are being created out of Amish children. During WW2, Amish conscientious objectors were forced by the government to do alternate public service in lieu of military service. This was known as civilian public service. Amish and Mennonite conscientious objectors were placed into mental hospitals to help. They served at Allentown State Hosp, Allentown, PA, Cantonsville State Hosp, Cantonsville, MD, Cleveland State Hosp, Cleveland OH, Delaware State Hosp, Parnhurst, DL, Denver State Hosp, Denver Co., Greystone Park State Hosp, Greystone Park, New Jersey, Harrisburg State Hosp, Harrisburg, PA, Hudson River State Hosp, Poughkeepsie, New York, Kalamazoo State Hosp, Kalamazoo MI, Lima State Hosp, Lima OH, Livermore State VA Hosp, Livermore CA, Macedonia State Hosp, Macedonia OH, Marlborough State Hosp, Marlborough, New Jersey, MT. Pleasant State Hosp, MT. Pleasant, 10, Norristown State Hosp, Norristown, PA, Provo State Hosp, Provo, Utah, Rhode Island. State Hosp, Howard, Rhode Island, Roseburg VA State Hosp, Roseburg or, Stanton State Hosp, Stanton, Virginia, Tiffin State Hosp, Tiffin OH, Wernersville State Hosp, Wernersville, PA, Ypsilanti State Hosp, Ypsilanti MI. The author, Fritz, believes that the complete story of how the Illuminati got a secret foothold into the Amish community lies in what happened in mental hospitals to the anxious to please, compliant, innocent Amish boys, who were assigned to these mental hospitals. Many people do not realize that during WW.I, Several Mennonite/Hutterite conscientious objectors were tortured to death by our government. Not a pretty picture when you find out how sadistic our government was willing to be toward its own citizens. Not only did the Amish boys go to lots of mental hospitals during WW2, but all of the religious groups that participated in the conscientious objector service, called civilian public service, contributed boys to the Office of Scientific Research and Development, part of the Army, which was still using these boys for experiments until December 31, 1946. What kinds of experiments were the Amish boys, who were offered up as guinea pigs, subjected to by the OSRD? We now know that some of these experiments were very dangerous to their human guinea pigs. 1-0 classification was the Selective Service Board's conscientious objector classification. During the Vietnam War, Amish young men went into IW service, conscientious objector service, at mental and regular hospitals. Their IW service was for 2 years. Some of these young men were programmed at these hospitals. One Amish boy after he got home from IW service committed suicide. The secret satanic families within various Amish settlements also offered up their children. This started a large-scale super-secret operation by the CIA/intelligence agencies to set up Delta teams within the Amish. Who would ever suspect an Amishman? They have been expendable assassins for the CIA for years. These young men are strong farm boys. They have no connection between themselves and the outside world where they secretly carry out their missions, and if they die, there is no birth record, and perhaps a dozen other siblings for their family to continue on with. During the Vietnam War, the military's selective service did things differently than in W.W.2. Any hospital or mental hospital which applied for approval could get IW, conscientious objector, boys. The Amish put together a steering committee to work with the government and the IW service. In the IW steering committee meetings, and the author Fritz attended one, it was stated by committee members the boys do not come back the same from the hospitals and that the IW service in the mental hospitals was proving unsatisfactory and harmful. Some of the mental hospitals which received Amish boys include Columbia, Missouri State Mental Hospital and Hospital Complex, Colorado Psychopathic Hospital in Denver, all of the hospitals that got WW3WS, as listed above, Central State Hospital, Indianapolis, IND, New Jersey State Hospital, Greystone Park, New Jersey, Philadelphia State Hospital, Philadelphia, PA, plus numerous others. At any one time, there were hundreds of Amish boys in IW service. It is suspected that many of these hospitals were involved in mind control, and it is known that the Columbia, MO complex of hospitals and Mid-Missouri State Mental Hospital, 803 Stadium Drive, Columbia, Missouri and the Veterans Hospital across the street were involved in mind control for the CIA. A mental hospital had to apply to the Selective Service Board for approval to get IW workers. Then their personnel departments would hire the IW boys for positions such as nursing attendants. One state mental hospital administrator told Fritz that the whole IW thing was pretty confidential. The Amish Steering Committee worked with the Mennonite Central Committee, MCC, which in turn worked for some quasi-religious group which is privately funded called the National Service Board of Religious Objectors, NSBRO, still active in Washington, D.C. The Amish were slow to act. But by the end of the Vietnam War, they had managed to get some of their farms approved for IW service, and in 1971, the steering committee was able to announce that 70 Amish IW boys were working on Amish farms in 8 states, rather than in hospitals. However, this late change was too late to protect their settlements from infiltration from sophisticated Illuminati mind control. How it is done. A programmed Amish boy will likely be contacted by what is called a cutout. This is the secret contact person who maintains contact between the handler and the Amish Delta. Cutouts can either be given several slaves, a block cutout, or in other cases only know the upline handler and downline person, a chain cutout. If further secrecy is needed by the handler, he can use sterile telephones which the Illuminati/CIA have, which cannot be traced, even by the telephone companies. When an Amish boy is activated and sent out on an assassination mission for the Illuminati/intelligence agencies, he is a professional at what he has been trained and programmed to do. Amish boys, programmed to be assassins, are used in what their handlers call wet ops. This intelligence lingo means that human blood will run. Wet ops, also called black ops, are debriefed by a briefing team. The Amish multiple will have to give a detailed account of the finished operation, once under hypnosis, once with a polygraph, and once under the drug scopolamine, a truth serum. And when the debriefing team, which includes a mind control programmer, is satisfied that all of the inconsistencies between the different accounts have been ironed out, then the programmer will block out all memory and guilt of the operation. The handler may write a blind memorandum which has no file, no or letterhead or name. Then Amish boy's assassination altars will be praised for having done a great service to humanity and to his country. The Amish boy can now be sent home to milk cows and work on his labor-intensive tobacco farm without any nagging guilt or horrible memories surfacing to trouble him, at least in theory. Trained assassins do have memory flashes, as all monarch slaves have, but they are only bits and pieces. People also do not realize that the Amish live in many more states than Pennsylvania. They move all over the United States. If an Amishman was traveling on a CIA mission, there are numerous of excuses that could be made for why he could be on the move. There are far more Amish young people away from the Amish settlements than people realize because they dress like the world. Many young people leave with the knowledge that they can go back years later and be accepted back into their community. What are some of the mitigating factors in all of this? The Amish do their own butchering. They are down-to-earth people who are not afraid of blood. Essentially all Amish children grow up helping with butchering, and seeing life and death played out every day on their farms. The Amish do not embalm their dead, and have their own cemeteries. The satanic cult within the Amish can reopen the graves and carry out satanic ceremonies afterward. Their cemeteries are small, almost hidden sites with markers hidden in grass. Some of these graveyards blend in with their rural settings. Elmo, Joseph, and Victor Stahl are some prominent Amish men. Joseph and Elmo have traveled a great deal to Central America. Joseph wrote a book on child training which teaches parents how to break a child's will. This author is supportive of discipline and respect. The book is pointed out, only because it is a paper trail to show that the Amish discipline and the Illuminati's discipline at times can be similar. The only person who might see an Amish boy being disciplined, since they are a rural people, would be the immediate family or an occasional Amish guest. An Amish man seeing a father carrying out the monarch steps to build dissociation would likely not see anything wrong. If the guest did see something wrong, i.e. too strict or mean, the objections would be kept very low-key. For sure, no non-Amish would ever hear about it. The Illuminati families like the Dukes and Reynolds control tobacco production and cigarette manufacturing. In order to keep their lifestyle in Pennsylvania, the Amish have had to grow tobacco for the Illuminati-controlled companies. This author can only speculate what economic leverage that has given the Illuminati over the Pennsylvania Amish. Hiding a major programming center. The blueprints of the Portland Mormon Temple at Lake Oswego, or which sets over a secret underground programming site, were changed overnight after they were looked at. The original blueprints showed that Lake Oswego had allowed a building code to broken. The blueprint was changed, showing that Lake Oswego's city employees were working along with the Mormon Church and the CIA to keep everything running smooth with their high-tech secret underground programming center, which has the front of being sacred temple grounds. 3 separate monarch slaves independently described this underground installation, and there are other evidences of it too. In order to gain access to the underground programming tunnels, a person has to place their palm on the wall, where a disguised instrument identifies a person's hand. The entrances are disguised using the most sophisticated techniques. One is from the temple laundry building south of the temple and another is from the hotel south of the temple. This hotel has a strange hard-to-find entrance to its parking lot, almost as if they haven't wanted uninvited guests. Tunnels are widely used at the other various programming sites.